Most people think death is quiet, like falling asleep in a dark room with the lights gently turned off. That's what I believe too. My name is Margaret Hale. I am 62 years old. And on January 19, 2026, I died on the floor of a church kitchen in rural Pennsylvania. One moment I was standing at the counter slicing onions for the Wednesday night soup. Same recipe I'd made 100 times. Same dull ache in my lower back. Same old radio murmuring the weather forecast behind me. Snow coming in by morning. Nothing unusual. Nothing prophetic. The next moment the knife slipped. It wasn't dramatic. No scream. No slow motion. Just a sudden sharp heat across my palm and then a strange pressure in my chest, like someone had wrapped a belt around my ribs and pulled hard. I remember staring at the cutting board, watching the red spread and mix with the white onion slices, thinking, this is going to be a mess to clean up. That was my last thought. I tried to call out to Ruth, the other volunteer in the kitchen, but my voice wouldn't rise above a breath. My knees buckled. I felt the tile against my cheek, cold and clean from the morning mop. I remember thinking how odd it was that the floor smelled like lemon cleaner while I was dying. Then everything stopped. No pain. No sound. No body. I didn't feel myself leave. I didn't feel myself rise. I was simply elsewhere. I was standing. Not on anything solid, yet I wasn't falling. Light surrounded me, pure endless light, but it didn't blind me. It didn't burn. It felt alive, like it was aware of me. I looked down at my hands and gasped. They were translucent. Not ghostly. Not fading. More like glass filled with warm color. I could see the light moving through my fingers, pulsing gently as if I were part of it. And then I heard my name. Margaret. The voice didn't come from one direction. It came from everywhere. From inside the light. From inside me. I turned. He was there. I didn't need to be told who he was. I didn't need proof. I didn't need theology. I knew him the way you know your own breath, the way you know when someone you love has entered a room without seeing them. He was Jesus. But not the Jesus from stained glass windows or soft paintings with gentle eyes and flowing hair. This Jesus was terrible. Not in cruelty. In authority. His presence pressed down on me like gravity. Absolute. Unavoidable. Every excuse I'd ever made, every prayer I'd rushed through, every moment I'd chosen comfort over obedience, none of it could survive in his presence. I fell to my knees without deciding to. I'm sorry, I said. Or maybe I thought it. Words felt small there. I didn't mean to waste my life. He stepped toward me. Each step made the light around us pulse brighter, like the universe itself was responding to him. You didn't waste it, he said. His voice was steady, deep, unshakable. But you didn't finish it either. He reached down and lifted me to my feet. His hands were solid. Warm. More real than anything I had ever touched while alive. More real than my kitchen, my house, my name. I wanted to smile. I wanted to cry. I wanted to stay. Instead he looked at me, not with anger, not even with disappointment, but with something far heavier. Urgency. There isn't much time, he said. With a movement of his hand, the light shifted. Space folded in on itself like a curtain being drawn back. And suddenly we were no longer alone. Below us, the earth came into view. Blue and fragile. Beautiful and wounded. I could see cities lit like constellations. I could see the curve of the oceans. And written in the air beside us, glowing faintly but unmistakably, were words I somehow knew were not symbolic. January 21st, 2026. My breath caught. What is this? I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Instead he said the words that still make my hands tremble when I remember them. Tell them this is not a story. He let the silence stretch after those words. Tell them this is not a story. The earth beneath us turned slowly, and for the first time I felt something like fear. Not the sharp panic of dying, but a deep, sinking awareness. The kind you feel when you realize a warning you ignored was real all along. What am I supposed to tell them? I asked. My voice sounded thin in that vast light. I'm not a preacher. I'm not anyone important. I volunteered in kitchens. I folded bulletins. I stayed in the background. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and I felt seen in a way that stripped me bare. That's why I chose you, he said. You still know how to listen. With another motion of his hand we moved. Not flying. Not falling. It was as if distance simply gave up. The earth rushed toward us and then we were hovering above a single country. America. From above it looked smaller than I expected. Fragile. Almost thin like glass stretched too far. I noticed something shimmering over it, like heat rising off asphalt on a summer road. A faint glow, uneven, flickering. What is that? I asked. That is mercy, he said quietly. I felt my chest tighten. The shimmer wasn't steady. In some places it was bright, strong. In others it was weak, fraying at the edges. It's the only thing holding back what they're inviting in. Inviting. I repeated. Look closer. I focused and my stomach dropped. The shimmer wasn't just fading. It was being pulled back. Not violently. Not all at once. Slowly. Like a tide receding. Like hands withdrawing after being ignored too many times. And where the light had already retreated, I saw movement. Shadows. Not the absence of light but something active. Purposeful. They gathered at the edges, pressing forward, testing the boundary, waiting. They don't believe in darkness anymore, he said. There was sorrow in his voice but no surprise. They call it stress. Anxiety. Burnout. They name everything except what it is. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend them. I thought of the kind people I knew. The generous ones. The churchgoers. The volunteers. They're trying, I said weakly. Some of them really are. Yes, he said. Some are. The way he said it told me everything. We descended toward a city. The lights grew brighter, sharper. Streets. Highways. Homes packed close together. And everywhere people. So many people. We moved through apartments where televisions glowed late into the night. Living rooms where families sat together without speaking. Bedrooms where phones lit faces in the dark. They are never alone, he said, yet they have never been more isolated. I watched a woman lying in bed beside her husband, both scrolling, backs turned to each other. I saw a teenage boy with earbuds in, tears running down his face while strangers laughed in the videos he watched. I saw a man kneeling beside his bed, praying quickly, checking the time halfway through. They still pray, I said, almost relieved. They still talk, he replied. They don't listen. The scene shifted again. We were inside a church. It was large. Beautiful. Modern. The kind with professional lighting and screens taller than most houses. The parking lot outside was full of new cars. Inside the music swelled. Hands were raised. Faces were emotional. The sound was overwhelming. Watch, he said. The walls became transparent. I didn't see bodies anymore. I saw hearts. A woman in the front row was singing loudly, tears streaming down her face. But her thoughts were on her appearance, on whether people noticed how moved she looked. A man behind her was clapping, smiling, while mentally calculating how soon he could leave to beat traffic. A young couple swayed together, their minds locked in a silent argument from the drive over. Their mouths moved. Their hearts wandered. They're worshipping how it feels, he said, not who I am. My throat tightened. Then he showed me the stage. The pastor stood confidently, speaking about favor, increase, breakthrough. His words were smooth, rehearsed, reflective. And then I saw his heart. It was busy, counting, measuring, planning, adjusting. He was already thinking about the next series, the next expansion, the next way to keep people engaged. Whole sections of truth had been carefully removed, not because they were unbiblical but because they were uncomfortable. This is not my house, he said. I felt something break inside me. Then where are you? I asked. He didn't answer with words. Instead he took me somewhere else. A small home. Faded paint. Toys in the yard. Nothing impressive. Inside a family sat around a table. No music. No stage. Just food, simple and warm. The father bowed his head and prayed. Not loudly. Not eloquently. Just honestly. Thank you for today, he said. Thank you for keeping us. Help us love you better tomorrow. When the prayer ended they talked. They laughed. They listened to one another. Phones lay forgotten on the counter. And there, in that ordinary room, I felt his presence more strongly than I had in the massive church. This is where I am, he said softly. I opened my mouth to speak but before I could, the light shifted again. And this time he took me somewhere I wasn't ready to see. We were standing in a hospital room. The air was heavy with antiseptic and fear. Machines hummed softly, their steady beeping the only thing holding the silence together. A little girl lay in the bed no older than 7. Tubes ran from her arms. A machine breathed for her. Her mother sat beside the bed, shoulders shaking, hands clenched in her hair. She wasn't crying quietly. This was the kind of grief that has no filter left. The kind that spills out because holding it in would kill you. I felt it hit me all at once. The desperation. The bargaining. The unanswered questions. She prays every night, I whispered, though I wasn't sure how I knew that. She believes. Yes, he said. She does. Then why? My voice broke. I couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't stop me. He didn't rebuke me. Instead, he asked me a question. Where are my people? I looked around the room instinctively, expecting to see someone else. Pastors, prayer teams, anyone. There was no one. They're busy, he said. They're arguing. The walls of the hospital dissolved, and suddenly I could see far beyond that room. I saw believers online tearing each other apart over doctrine, politics, secondary issues that felt urgent but changed nothing. I saw prayer meetings that had turned into complaint sessions. Churches that had replaced quiet rooms with coffee bars. People who could quote scripture flawlessly but hadn't sat in silence with God in months. They know about me, he said. They don't know me. The words landed like a weight. They want me to fix their problems, he continued, but they don't want me to interrupt their lives. The scene shifted again. We were standing over a city street at night. Everything looked normal at first. Traffic lights, storefronts, people moving about their business. But then the lights flickered. Once, twice. And then they went out. Not everywhere. Not all at once. Just enough to change the atmosphere. I watched confusion ripple through the crowd. Phones came out immediately. Screens glowed brighter than faces. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else cursed. A car horn blared too long. And then I felt it. The darkness. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was pressure. A heaviness that settled into people's chests, into their thoughts. Fear bloomed quickly, irrationally. What is this? I asked. This is what happens when what they trust fails, he said. I saw a man trying to use his credit card at a closed gas station, pounding the machine in frustration. I saw a woman arguing with a cashier over empty shelves. I saw neighbors turn suspicious, then hostile over nothing at all. The systems they believe will save them are fragile, he said. They always have been. We moved forward in time just a little. I saw news anchors trying to sound calm while their eyes betrayed panic. I saw markets shaking, supply chains slowing. Words like temporary and precaution repeated until they lost meaning. And beneath it all, the same question hung in the air. Why doesn't this feel normal anymore? This is not punishment, he said, as if responding to my thoughts. This is exposure. What do you mean? When the ground shakes, he said, you find out what wasn't anchored. I watched as some people fell apart almost immediately, rage, despair, blame spilling out unchecked. Others withdrew into themselves, hoarding, isolating, trusting no one. But then I saw something else. A small apartment. Power out. The room lit by a single lantern. A family huddled together under blankets. The father's hands were shaking as he set the light down. I don't know what's happening, he said quietly. And I don't know how to fix it. He swallowed hard, then continued. But I know you're still God. He prayed simply. Honestly. No performance. No certainty. Just trust offered in the dark. And something changed. The fear didn't disappear, but it loosened its grip. The children stopped crying. The room felt warmer. I saw it then. A faint light surrounded them. Not blinding. Not dramatic. Just enough. That's it, he said. That's what I'm looking for. What? I asked. People who turn toward me when everything else turns off. We moved again, faster this time. House after house. Some glowed from the inside out, even in total darkness. Others were brightly lit but felt hollow, empty, cold. In one large home, a man sat surrounded by supplies, weapons, locks on every door. He was prepared for everything except loneliness. In a tiny studio apartment, an elderly woman knelt beside her bed, praying for neighbors by name. She had almost nothing, and yet her room shone so brightly it hurt to look at. She has oil, he said simply. My heart pounded. What are you showing me? I asked. Why me? He turned to face me fully. Because the separation has already begun, he said. And most of them don't know it yet. The light around us dimmed slightly, not in threat but in gravity. January is not the end, he continued. It's the reveal. I wanted to ask more. I had so many questions. But before I could speak, the space around us shifted again. And this time he took me to a place that felt uncomfortably familiar. My world. My life. And what was coming next. We were standing on a street I recognized immediately. Not because it was famous. Because it was ordinary. A four-way intersection near a grocery store I'd visited 100 times. A gas station on the corner. A bank across the street. The kind of place you pass through without thinking, assuming it will always be there. The date hovered faintly in the air above us. January 21st, 2026. That's when it hit me. This is now, I whispered. Yes, he said. This is the beginning of what they keep calling temporary. At first nothing looked wrong. Cars moved through the intersection. People walked in and out of stores. Someone laughed. Someone complained into a phone. Then a man stepped out of the bank. He was holding his phone, staring at the screen like it had betrayed him. He tried again. Swiped. Entered his PIN slower this time. Declined. He frowned, stepped back inside, spoke to the teller. Her smile was tight. Practiced. She shook her head. Behind him the line grew restless. I watched irritation spread like a virus. Someone scoffed. Someone muttered about incompetence. A woman checked her balance, her face draining of color. Across the street the gas station sign flickered. The price changed twice in under a minute. A driver slammed his door and yelled at no one in particular. This isn't collapse, I said. This is just inconvenience. He looked at me gently. That's what they always think at first. We moved forward. Not days, not months, just moments. The grocery store doors slid open and shut constantly. Inside, shelves weren't empty, but they were uneven. Gaps where people lingered too long. Carts filled faster than usual. Conversations dropped to whispers. I saw fear in people's eyes. Not screaming panic. Recognition. Like someone realizing the ground beneath them isn't solid anymore. They built their peace on predictability, he said. They never noticed how fragile it was. A woman pushed past us, her cart overflowing with things she didn't need. Paper products. Bottled water. Food she didn't know how to cook. Her hands were shaking. A teenager sat on the curb outside the store, crying into her phone. They're not answering, she kept saying. Why aren't they answering? I turned to him. Where are the churches? I asked. Where are the people who are supposed to help when things like this happen? He didn't answer right away. Instead he pointed down the street. A large church building stood there, cross shining bright even in the gray winter light. The parking lot was empty. The doors were chained shut. A sign hung crookedly on the glass. Closed. Services moved online. I felt a knot form in my stomach. That's not, I started. He touched the wall. It became transparent. Inside the building was intact. No damage. No danger. But it was empty. Offices abandoned. Stage dark. Instruments silent. The structure is fine, he said. The people are gone. Why? I asked. Because when comfort left, so did their commitment. We moved again. Just a few blocks away, to a house I would have driven past without a second glance. Paint peeling. Yard overgrown. Nothing impressive. But light poured from every window. Inside, a dozen people were gathered in a living room. No microphones. No screens. No one in charge. They were praying. Not taking turns. Not performing. Just praying. Some aloud. Some quietly. Some crying. Some holding hands. Someone was reading from a worn Bible by lamplight. They stayed, he said. They gathered when it would have been easier to scatter. A warmth spread through my chest. That's my church, he continued. It always has been. The scene shifted again, and this time it was closer. More personal. My own neighborhood. My street. I saw my house. Lights on. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Inside I saw myself moving through familiar routines. Washing dishes. Checking the news. Sitting on the couch with the television murmuring in the background. And yet, something was missing. I watched myself pray quickly before bed, already half asleep. I watched myself nod along to sermons, comforted but unchanged. I watched myself assume there would always be more time. I felt exposed. I thought I was faithful, I said quietly. You were sincere, he replied. But sincerity without surrender is just habit. The words stung because they were true. I don't want to scare them, I said. People are already anxious. If I tell them what I'm seeing. I'm not asking you to scare them, he interrupted gently. I'm asking you to wake them. He turned and the world around us slowed like everything was holding its breath. There is darkness coming, he said. Not everywhere. Not all at once. But enough. Darkness of power. Darkness of systems. Darkness of the soul. But hear me, Margaret. He waited until I looked at him. The darkness is not the point. I swallowed. Then what is? The choice, he said. Who they turn to when the lights go out. The space around us began to shift again, deeper this time. Heavier. Like we were approaching something I couldn't turn away from. And there's something else you need to see, he said. Something I didn't want to see, but needed to. This time we didn't move through space. Space moved away from us. The light dimmed, not disappearing but concentrating like everything unnecessary was being stripped back. What remained felt heavy. Intentional. We were standing in what looked like a simple kitchen. Not modern. Not decorated. Just clean counters, worn cabinets, and a single window letting in pale morning light. The kind of kitchen where real life happens. On the counter sat 5 items. They didn't glow dramatically. They weren't surrounded by angels or fire. They were ordinary. Almost disappointing in their simplicity. I recognized them instantly. Rice. Beans. Honey. Salt. Wool. I frowned, confused. This is it. He didn't seem offended. This is where most people stop listening, he said calmly. He stepped toward the counter and picked up the first item, a plain bag of white rice. No label. No branding. Rice, he said. The cheapest kind. The kind nobody posts pictures of. He turned it in his hands. Rice is humility, he continued. It feeds millions yet it demands nothing. No status. No attention. No applause. He set it down gently. Tell them to return to what is basic. To stop trying to be impressive. In the coming days, the ones who survive spiritually will be the ones who already learned how to live without excess. My chest tightened. I thought of how desperately people clung to being seen, being special. He moved to the second item, a bag of dried beans. Beans represent community, he said. They take time. Preparation. Patience. He glanced at me, almost smiling. And they're not meant to be eaten alone. I understood immediately. In the darkness, he continued, isolation will kill more people than lack of resources. I am preparing a people who know how to share, how to wait, how to depend on one another again. He set the beans down and picked up the third item. Honey. It caught the light softly, warm and golden. Honey doesn't spoil, he said. It lasts longer than empires. He held it closer to me. This is my word. Promises people have forgotten because they didn't see immediate results. Tell them to remember. Truth doesn't expire just because culture changes. I swallowed hard. The fourth item was salt. Plain. White. Unremarkable. Salt preserves, he said. It purifies. It stings, but it heals. His voice grew firmer. Tell them to let go of what is corrupting them. Even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts. Compromise will not survive what's coming. He picked up the final item. Wool. A simple glass bottle of olive oil. When he held it, the light around us shifted slightly, responding. This is the most important one, he said. I already knew. Oil is my spirit, he continued. Presence. Relationship. Intimacy. He looked directly at me. When the darkness comes, they won't be able to borrow this. They won't be able to download it. They won't be able to fake it. I felt tears burn my eyes. They will either have oil, he said, or they won't. I thought of the parable I'd heard so many times. Wise virgins. Foolish ones. Lamps prepared too late. People are going to think this is ridiculous, I whispered. They'll say it's superstition. Fear-mongering. They'll laugh. He didn't deny it. They laughed at Noah too, he said simply. He placed the oil back on the counter. The food is not the point, he continued. It never was. Then why? Because obedience reveals the heart, he said. Some will hear this and mock it. Others will dismiss it as symbolic and do nothing. But a few will listen. A few will act. And in acting they will prepare their souls, not just their shelves. The kitchen began to blur at the edges. I felt a pull. Gentle but insistent. Wait, I said. That's not enough. They'll ask what to do beyond this. How to prepare their hearts. He stepped closer. Then tell them this, he said. Tell them to pray when it feels pointless. To forgive when it feels unfair. To love when it costs them something. Tell them to clean their houses, not of furniture but of resentment, pride, and hidden sin. Tell them to make room for me. The pull grew stronger. I don't know if they'll listen, I said. He met my fear with calm certainty. You're not responsible for who listens, he said. You're responsible for telling the truth. The light surged suddenly and everything began to move backward. Fast. The kitchen vanished. The earth vanished. The light folded in on itself. And then, pain, crushing, burning. Air slammed back into my lungs like knives. A sound cut through everything. Beeping. Panical. Urgent. I gasped, my chest searing, my body heavy and broken. And I knew. I was back. But I wasn't the same. And neither was the time I'd returned to. I woke up screaming. Not words. Just sound, raw and animal, tearing its way out of my chest as my body fought its way back into itself. Lights burned above me. White. Too bright. Someone was shouting my name. Hands pressed me down as pain exploded through my ribs. Stay with us, Margaret. Stay with us. I sucked in air and it felt wrong, like my lungs had forgotten what to do with it. Every breath burned. My heart hammered like it was furious to be alive again. I didn't want to be. I wanted to go back. The room smelled like disinfectant and panic. A nurse leaned over me, her face tense but professional. A man stood just behind her. My husband, Daniel. His eyes red, his hands shaking so badly he had to grip the bed rail to steady himself. She's back, someone said. We've got her. But that word felt like a sentence. They told me later I'd been gone for almost 9 minutes. Long enough for the kitchen floor to be soaked. Long enough for someone to start praying out loud. Long enough for the paramedics to look at each other and quietly prepare to stop. But I didn't hear any of that. All I could hear was his voice fading as I slammed back into my body. Tell them. The next few days blurred together. Machines. Questions. Doctors speaking slowly, carefully, like they were afraid sudden words might break me. They said it was a combination of blood loss and stress. They said I was lucky. They said I should rest. Lucky. I lay in that hospital bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I'd seen. Every face. Every house filled with light. Every room swallowed by darkness. Daniel sat beside me, holding my hand, watching me like I might disappear again if he blinked. You scared me, he said softly. I know, I whispered. But that wasn't what scared me. What scared me was how normal everything felt. The monitors beeped. Nurses laughed down the hall. Someone argued about coffee outside my door. The world hadn't stopped. It hadn't paused to acknowledge what was coming. And that's when I understood something that made my stomach twist. Most people wouldn't believe me. I was discharged 2 days later with instructions to rest, avoid stress, and follow up with a cardiologist. The doctor smiled kindly when he handed me the paperwork. You had a close call, he said. These experiences can feel very real. Just give yourself time. I nodded. But I wasn't confused. I was awake. The first night home I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table long after Daniel had gone to bed, staring at the same counter where it had happened. The faint scar on my palm throbbed like it remembered before I did. I looked around our house. So much stuff. Cabinets full of things we didn't use. Closets stuffed with clothes we didn't need. Drawers packed with junk we'd sworn would be useful someday. And beneath it all, a heaviness I'd learned to ignore. I stood up. I didn't pray. Not yet. I started clearing. Box after box. Bag after bag. Things we'd been holding onto out of habit, guilt, or the lie that more meant safer. The garage filled quickly. I worked until my arms ached and my breath came short. Around 3 a.m, Daniel came out bleary-eyed. What are you doing? He asked. Making room, I said. For what? I finally looked at him. For God. He studied my face for a long moment, searching for confusion, fear, something broken. And said he saw resolve. He didn't argue. He grabbed a box. The next day I went to the store. I didn't wander. I didn't browse. I walked straight to the basics. Rice, beans, honey, salt, wool. Nothing fancy. No labels that promised health or status. Just what would last. People watched as I loaded the cart. A woman laughed quietly to her friend. A man shook his head. I didn't care. That night we sat at the table. Me, Daniel, our daughter Claire. Phones off. Television silent. I need to tell you something, I said. Claire rolled her eyes at first. She was 16. Everything felt dramatic to her. But as I spoke, something shifted. I didn't embellish. I didn't threaten. I told the truth. When I finished, the room was quiet. How long do we have? Daniel asked. I shook my head. I don't know, I said. But I know this. Waiting for proof will be too late. Claire swallowed. What do we do? I thought of the kitchen. The counter. The oil in his hands. We pray, I said. Not like before. Really pray. That night we chose a place. A small room at the end of the hall we'd used for storage. We cleared it out together. No screens. No noise. Just a rug, a chair, and a Bible that hadn't been opened in years. We didn't call it anything special. But when I closed the door and knelt for the first time, I felt it. That same presence. Quiet. Heavy. I didn't ask for anything. I just said, I'm listening. And for the first time in a long time, I was. Something changed after that. Not outside, not at first. The news still sounded the same. People still argued about the same things. Life kept its familiar rhythm. Work. Food. Groceries. Small talk. But inside our house the air felt different. Heavier in a good way. Like when a storm is coming and everything goes quiet. Not because something is wrong, but because something important is about to happen. We started going into that room every morning. Not for long at first. 10 minutes. Sometimes less. No music. No phones. No list of things we wanted God to fix. Just stillness. It was harder than I expected. My mind wandered constantly. I'd kneel down intending to pray and find myself thinking about errands, bills, things I'd forgotten to do years ago. There were mornings when I wanted to quit, when it felt pointless and awkward and dry. But I remembered what he said. Pray when it feels pointless. So I stayed. And slowly, quietly, something began to surface. Convictions I hadn't asked for. Memories I'd buried. Words I'd spoken years ago that I'd dismissed as harmless but hadn't been. One morning, without warning, I found myself crying. Not from fear. From clarity. I realized how much of my faith had been built around convenience. Around fitting God into the spaces that didn't cost me anything. Around assuming he would understand later. That room didn't let me do that anymore. Daniel changed too. He started praying out loud. Not polished prayers. Honest ones. Confessions. Questions. Sometimes anger. Sometimes gratitude that surprised him mid-sentence. Claire resisted at first. She'd sit with her arms crossed, eyes open, clearly counting seconds. But she kept coming back. And one evening, long after I'd gone to bed, I heard voices. Soft. I stood in the hallway and listened. She was praying alone. Not repeating anything we'd taught her. Just talking. Asking God if he was real. Asking if he was listening. Asking if he cared about things she was afraid to say out loud. I leaned against the wall and cried silently. Outside our house, things began to shift. Not dramatically. Not in ways people could easily point to. Just small fractures. The store shelves took longer to refill. Prices crept up then jumped. People were shorter with each other. Quicker to snap. Slower to help. At church, attendance dropped. The sermons grew softer. Less about repentance. More about reassurance. I watched people cling desperately to normal. And I understood why. Normal feels safe. Even when it isn't. I tried to tell a few friends. Not strangers. Not online. People I loved. Some listened politely, nodded, changed the subject. Some smiled the way doctors do when they're humoring a patient. One laughed and said I'd been watching too many videos. A few grew uncomfortable. You're scaring people, one woman said. Faith isn't supposed to feel like this. She's right, another added. God wouldn't warn us like that. I thought of the prophets. Of Noah. of how often warnings are mistaken for cruelty by those who don't want to hear them. I stopped trying to convince. Instead, I focused on preparing. Not more supplies. People. I invited a neighbor over for dinner. Then another. We didn't talk about the future at first. We talked about life. About exhaustion. About fear people were pretending not to feel. Then we prayed. Not long. Not loudly. But something happened. They came back. Soon that small room wasn't big enough. We moved to the living room. People brought their kids. Someone brought a Bible with pages worn thin. Someone else brought questions they'd never asked out loud before. There was no leader. No agenda. Just hunger. And light. I saw it again, the same faint glow I'd seen in the vision. Not visible to eyes but undeniable. Peace in the middle of uncertainty. Strength that didn't come from answers. One night as we prayed, the power flickered. Just for a second. Someone gasped. Someone laughed nervously. But no one panicked. We kept praying. That's when I knew. This was the Ark. Not a building. Not a bunker. People. I remembered his words. The wise are not the ones with the most stored up. They're the ones who know where to run when everything else fails. I don't know exactly what the next days will bring. I just know this. The door is still open. And people are deciding every day whether to walk through it. Whether they realize it or not. I'm telling you this now because today matters. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Today. I used to think moments like this were rare, big dramatic turning points marked by signs in the sky. I know better now. Most doors don't slam shut. They close slowly, quietly, while people are busy arguing about whether they were ever open at all. That's what this moment is. You don't have to believe every word I've said. I know how it sounds. If I were listening to this a year ago, I would have found reasons to be skeptical too. But I need you to hear this part clearly. Salvation has never been about being informed. It has always been about being surrendered. The people who will stand when things shake are not the smartest, the loudest, or the most prepared on paper. They're the ones who learned how to kneel before they learned how to stockpile. The ones who chose prayer over performance. Love over outrage. Obedience over comfort. Clean faith. Not perfect faith. Not impressive faith. Clean faith. Faith that forgives even when it costs pride. Faith that prays even when it feels like nothing is happening. Faith that loves God more than being right, more than being safe, more than being liked. I've watched people wait for proof their whole lives. Proof the economy would fail. Proof the church would change. Proof the world wasn't as stable as it pretended to be. By the time proof arrives, preparation is over. The wise didn't wait for the bridegroom's footsteps. They filled their lamps in the quiet. In the ordinary. When it still felt unnecessary. That's what this is. An invitation. Not to panic. Not to hoard. Not to hide. But to return. Return to prayer that isn't rushed. Return to scripture that isn't skimmed. Return to love that isn't conditional. Return to a God who has been patient far longer than we deserved. You don't need a platform. You don't need permission. You don't need to convince anyone. Start where you are. Choose a place. Turn off the noise. Get on your knees. If there's bitterness, let it go. If there's hidden sin, bring it into the light. If there's fear, offer it honestly. And if all you can say is, God, I don't know what to do, say that. He's listening. I don't know how much time there is. I was never given a countdown, only urgency. Only this knowing that the season has shifted and pretending otherwise won't change it. What I do know is this. Light still responds to obedience. Peace still follows prayer. And love still casts out fear. The door isn't slammed shut. But it is moving. If something in you feels unsettled right now, don't drown it out. That discomfort isn't condemnation. It's mercy. It's the quiet knock of a God who would rather warn than abandon. Choose him. Not later. Not when it's obvious. No. I've done what I was asked to do. The rest is between you and God.